Hey, welcome to Viking Preparedness. I am Pastor Joe Fox. It is cold, it is wet. If it rains, we're going to have to walk and talk. I've been getting a lot of email, comments, messages, which I checked for the first time in a couple months the other day. Reference bugging out, bug out bags, things like that. And so I think I'm going to have to move. It's starting to rain. I think this falls into the category of, I just assume everybody knows this stuff, and so I don't talk about it a lot. But clearly, everybody doesn't, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit, maybe in a few different videos. I tell you something else that is abundantly clear to me is that many of you have yet to buy and read my book, Survivalist Family, Prepared Americans for a Strong America. And I also make the point in there, you could be from Oz or England or whatever, and it would work for you as well. I'm a nationalist. You should be proud of your country. What does my dog have in its mouth? A big bone, a deer leg, a fresh one, I didn't shoot that deer. Oh well, poachers, what can you do? Yeah, so if you don't have my book, you should get it. Why are you looking up at me? I cover what I consider basic and intermediate stuff on there, but like I said, it's a little bit clear that y'all aren't watching it or haven't read it, so you need to. It's not very expensive, $20 on Amazon.com, something like that. Okay, bugging out. I think for this video and bug out bags, I think I will let you derive some lessons from two incidents in my past. If you read my book, you'll know I've been bugging out since I was about 1 year old and had bug out bags before they were called that. But I have been doing bug out bag exercises for over a decade. 13 years, we held the National Winter Bug Out Bag Exercise. And then it just, I got bored with it, quite frankly, and I quit hosting it. But I saw a lot of things. And before I started hosting the national one, and you can read about a lot of the past events in my blog, vikingpreparedness.blogspot.com. Just type in Bob in the search box, you'll find it. See pictures and everything. Before that, I don't know, 17 years ago, my family was in a MAG, a mutual assistance group, with a few other families. And we used to get together about every 6 weeks for a training event. And in one of those events, we decided that we wanted to do a bug out bag exercise. We wanted to move as a team, as a MAG, as a crew, cross country, and test out our patrolling and our bobs and all that stuff. It was winter time, and how do I want to go with this story? The night before, we had all linked up because we were a MAG, but man, we lived pretty far apart. I'm talking like 4 to 6 hours apart. Not really workable, right? Unless you saw it coming and got together in time. If you waited till an event happened to come together as a group, it would have never worked. But be that as may, we worked with what we had. And we all got together the night before at one guy's house. And, we stayed up late talking, not like 2 in the morning. Then we got up at 6 and moved out to the Bob area, which happened to be here, Shofar Mountain, without any development. It was just pure woods, rocks, and trees at the time. Couldn't even park on the land. And back then, what many survivalists, which is what we called ourselves, used to wear was BDUs, Army Camouflage Uniforms. So we all had them, men, women, and children. We even had little kid sets. And back then, I was younger than I am now, and not as wise in the ways of preparedness from a lot of angles, although I was still pretty squared away. But I was still thinking like an Army Ranger. And so our rucksacks, my wife's rucksack and my rucksack, were Alice rucksacks. They were heavy. Everybody in our mag had heavy rucks. We carried things like snap links and carabiners and ropes, and everybody had a AR-15. My wife had a full-size AR-15 because M4s weren't that popular then. We had a combat harness, with magazine pouches and butt packs and canteens, and we looked like little militia people or soldiers or something walking through the woods. Even the kids looked like that. My youngest was about 7-ish at the time. And so our plan was we were going to get out of the cars. We were going to transfer into our bug out clothing, which was our BDUs. And then we were going to hike about a mile to a place in the woods that we kind of had half identified and set up a camp there, pull security, stand to, all those things. And problem, a couple days before the event, my wife got kicked by a horse. Thought she broke her shin. Had a nasty bruise on it, was in some kind of A-strap. We went to the hospital, had x-rays, it wasn't broken. But man, she got bruised, and she was on crutches. And so we considered either leaving her home, not an option, 3 kids, and I was kind of in charge of the mag, or canceling the bug out event. Not really an option because, we had planned this thing forever, or modifying it. And then we thought, you know what? If we have to bug out and somebody's on crutches, we better figure out how we're going to do that as a crew. And so we got out, we got dressed, we grabbed our rucksacks and our rifles and our kit, and my wife had her rucksack on. She had her combat harness on. She had an AR-15 slung across her neck, hanging down in front, and she's on crutches. And we put security out, left, right, rear, front, and we had a plan where we were putting kids and stuff in the formation, and so we're moving through these pretty rugged, well, what I just came out of, through that stuff, and man, it just wasn't working. I mean, we probably got 400 yards, a quarter mile, and my wife is just sucking. And so that's military speak for her. She wasn't doing very well physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so we decided, all right, what if this is real and this is happening? We got to do something. And so what we did is we cached her ruck. She took her ruck off, and back then we all carried a piece of camouflage netting in our bug out bags, and we hid it up underneath the tree and put the camo net over it. It was already green anyway, and put branches around it. And then we moved out. She still kept her harness and her rifle. She moved out on crutches. We moved out as a formation. We went to where we were going to set up. We did all the things we do. I'm not going to turn this into a tactical video, but then we sent a couple people back to go get her rucksack and then come back. So there you go. We made it. And then a funny part of that story, it's a very long story, which I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but a funny part of that story is I went to sleep early. Because the night before we stayed up till 2, the morning before I'd gotten up about 4:30, so I hadn't had a lot of sleep. And I mean, I don't know, it got dark here about 5:30 then. That's when I zonked out, and everybody else was like, man, we're tired, what time is it? And it was like 7:30 and they all went to sleep. So there's some stuff you can pull from there, right? You gotta make it happen. You can make it happen. You're gonna have to modify. And it's better if you think about those things now. And another stories for other time is what you actually need in your bug out bag. So there's that. And I guess another story is that's when we figured out, children just can't walk that far, and I can't carry 3 kids and my stuff. And so we changed the food that we carried in our bug out bags for the time that we had little children. We carried food that would take more time to prepare, like, instant potatoes and rice and stuff, because we knew we weren't going to be walking all day. If it was just me and my wife, yeah, we could walk all day, lay down, go to sleep, get up and walk. But when you have kids, that's just not happening. So we modified our food to take advantage of the extra time we'd have downtime. And yes, we had food that we could eat that didn't require cooking as well. Okay, so there's that story. Then the other story is one of the bug out bag exercises that I hosted here. I invited somebody, And they had fallen under the sway of a man who put out a book that was so horrible, I made margin notes all through it in case somebody ever, when I die and somebody gets my library, they don't think I think it was a good book. There's just so much wrong with that book. And this guy purported to be some kind of guru, and his big plan was that everybody needed to have a bug out cart, like a garden cart with the big wheels, kind of like the Mormon hand carts. I think is what he was envisioning. And then in this cart, when you're bugging out, you need all these things to include, saws and axes and shovels and a composting toilet bucket and, da 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 da. And so I had invited these people to come to the next bug out bag camp out. And they said, oh yeah, we want to test out our cart and da 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 da. And I said, that ain't gonna work. A cart is not gonna work. We're going cross country, not on roads. We're going cross country over hill and dale, over rocks, through ravines, that kind of thing for this exercise. And they're like, oh no, we've got big tires on it. It's not gonna work. No, this guy knows all about it and he said it'll work. That's why you get the big tires on it. And I only argue with somebody so much. Hey, do what you want. And so they showed up, and on this particular exercise, I broke everybody up into 5-person teams and put an experienced person in charge of them. So we have our little in brief, and I say, okay, we're going to walk about a mile that way. And I gave that whole family to one of my friends at the time, and I said, they're yours, man. And man, they had like this huge wall tent. I mean, their trailer weighed, I don't know, 300 pounds or something. And he's like, look, you can't take that, you can't take that, you can't take the cart. They're like, we need the cart. He goes, it's not going to go. Come here, just walk with me 100 yards. Let me show you what we're going to walk through. And they're like, oh, no, they were dejected. The cart's not going to work. So then they went to rucksacks. Thank God they had rucksacks in the cart. They all put these monster rucksacks on, and were carrying like too much stuff. I mean, just overloaded. And we go traipsing through the woods, and man, by the time they got to where we were going to set up camp, they were toast. They were toast. And they hadn't gone but a mile. The purpose of bugging out is not to go a mile into those woods. It's to get to your bug out location, which I'm going to address here in a second. And so they set up their camp. They were dejected because they didn't have half the stuff that had been planned to be in their cart that was now back in their car. And the next morning they popped smoke. They left. To their credit, see, they were in over their head. To their credit, they went home and totally revamped how they do things. Sent me a big long email about it. So that exercise was good for them. They learned. They actually learned. They didn't just experience. They took the lessons learned from that experience, applied them, and they learned. So there's that. Pull some lessons out of that, if you will. You ever see that movie, The Road? I think Vigo's in that, right? The number one lesson from that movie, The Road, is don't be on the road. Not if you're walking. All right. 2 more things, and then I will probably address other issues depending on your comments. I'm talking to Patreon now. I may end up putting this one on YouTube. If I do put this one on YouTube, YouTubers, you're lucky. You get to see one. Come check us out on Patreon. But for you Patreon Vikings, depending on your comments, if you like this, if you want more, I think I probably have a master's and could go for a PhD in bugging out. I have a couple different books in my head just on bugging out. If you'd like more, we can take it further. But let me give you 2 big reasons, or 2 big rules of thumb for bugging out. You ever hear that thing, the first rule of a gunfight? Have a gun, right? The first rule of bugging out is to have a bob. You need a bob. I mean, the federal government tells every American to have a grab-and-go kit. That's a bob, right? Every American. So if they're telling the zombies that walk around Walmart at 2 o'clock in the morning to have a bug out kit, don't you think you should? That's number one. That's where most people fail. And then the people who didn't fail on number one, who actually did assemble some kind of kit, they fail here on number 2. The second most important part of bugging out is having a bug out location already decided upon, scouted, picked out, ready to go. You don't just bug out like Jeremiah Johnson or some Brian Keith, Chuck Heston, mountain man into the beyond and think you're going to make it. You're not. You're not. You're going to starve to death and freeze to death. You have to have a place you're going to, a plan. And then you design your bug out bag, not based on what the federal government says you need, not based on what Joe Fox says you need, not based on what anybody else says you need. You design your bug out bag based on your personal abilities, where you plan on starting with it, and where you plan on going to. That's what you base it on. If you don't have a location, you're just going to be a refugee with a nice backpack. No bueno. All right. I hope that's helpful. Give this some thought. It shocks me that some of you all don't have bug out bags and that a lot of you don't have bug out plans. And one more thing, since I'm probably going to put this on YouTube, no lie, what I hear right now, and I'll shut up here for a second, behind the guinea sound and the train sound is Chinooks. Double rotor helicopters. They fly around here relatively frequently, but the other day I saw something I had never seen here. Matter of fact, it was last Saturday. I saw two little birds, Hughes 500s. What are they, MH6s? Flying by. Yeah, I did, out here in the Ozarks. What's going on? You have a bug out bag ready to go? I do. All right, I'll see you out there.